So,
Oh, let's welcome everybody to this fireside. And Dato, you want to tell us about what we're talking about today?
yeah, so we're mostly talking about how nobody came today. Yeah, and we're thinking about not doing a fireside. So, well, at least I am.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I'm really sorry, Max. And yeah.
Well, let's just do a general brainstorming session.
Okay, so the theme of human AI symbiosis is always a relevant theme.
Mm-hmm.
And one question concerning everyone is, what is the system in the future that kind of delivers the coexistence between artificial intelligence and human beings? It's like many people presume that there's like one general AI network in the future, and that we have, as human beings, have to deal with only one of it. But most likely, there's going to be like a decentralized version of various AIs spawning simultaneously on different sides of this planet. And basically, there's not a single hypothesis why they should be kind of mixing up into a single entity. So, uh, if by presuming that there's like a decentralized future of AIs existing in some kind of system where they want to have consensus on things, not only with each other but only with human beings. So, um, viewing like biometric verification systems, such as Humanode, like and basically it's like creating a system for coexistence between humans, biometrically verified humans, and AIs, where they can create networks of trust and networks of verification, like between human and AIs of different kinds. So it's like a multi-way highway for decentralization and verification between our species, if you can call it AI, a general AI species.
Mm-hmm. And it might kind of be off the topic, but the first thing that I think of when I hear of, you know, AIs or these personas, multiple personas. The first example that I end up thinking of is from the novel Hyperion by Dan Simmons. They have three AIs that have, different viewpoints. One is more moderate, one is more progressive, and one is more, um, as I say, reserved. And they're constantly, playing a game of checks and balances between the three. And each AI is composed of, you know, thousands and thousands of multiple AIs within the system. And so, that's kind of, the first thing that pops into my mind when I hear about uh, the future and AIs. But in the novels, they're uh, damn powerful. And actually, obviously, if AIs of that level were to, uh, as they say, be evolved to the point where they can, I wouldn't say make decisions, but become greater, greater powers in decision making, it would be interesting to see how we as human beings can actually, um, I wouldn't say stand up to them, but at least be on equal footing with the ability to pull the plug.
Well,
Data,
so
you,
the
yeah, go ahead.
question here is really, how do you envision like a system that enables some kind of interaction in terms of rights and obligations, and between the like independent conscious AI and
Hmm.
the society that's it's living in, like Are you going to give a passport to an AI? How are you then going to enforce your law on this AI so that like becomes the part of your society or something like this? So this like problem like derives from the understanding that there is no like there's no like platform or a network that really kind of defines the interaction between different units in a economy or like social network uh, that enables you to build uh, trust networks with AIs of any sort. Like um, for it to somehow legally be bind to its rights or its obligations because it's not a like living thing. So creating this system that kind of verifies the truth of humans and AIs and kind of sets the consensus of different visions and viewpoints of various AIs and humans inside the same system to formulate a consensus on some matters such as, I don't know, human and AI rights and enforcement of the law, or like even something like ownership of something. Can AIs own stuff? If so, who enforces that ownership? And like coexisting in the same spectrum is impossible without having um, like units inside the same network as you're like verifying your biometric existence through decentralized pseudonymous passive active liveness detection and such matching operations. And you'll create like an identity that is interactable with AIs because you'll basically both digitalized in a blockchain way, sort of like verified and bound to each other. And from that, you can build on that like connection between one another. You can create smart contracts that will interact between humans and AIs and will definitely bring like the results that you're anticipating before you're making the smart contract. And the AI on the other side is not able to violate it in any way. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's like a system that I'm talking about, if you're getting my point.
Yeah. Well, again, once again, one thing that comes to mind is uh, I, Robot from Isaac Asimov with the three laws of robotics. You know the three laws, right?
The Asimov laws.
Uh, the first law, a robot may not injure a human being or through interaction allow a human being to come to harm. The second law is a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except when such orders would conflict with the first law. And the third law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So, I mean, obviously, if we're talking about uh, AI networks of such a large scale, obviously they'd have to be built on some very, very uh, fundamental laws. But as you mentioned, when it comes to interaction with the AIs, especially if they're decentralized, I tend to agree that there'd have to be a way to not only uh, have those that interact with the AIs, do smart contracts, the AIs or whatever, uh, prove that they are living beings. And I think that the system we are currently developing is definitely something that can do that. I mean, if we're talking about a centralized system, it's easy to, for the centralized authority to uh, lay down the law and commands and whatever. But if we're talking about a truly decentralized system, and AI is residing on such a system, yeah, the rules change drastically, and there needs to be a strong consensus there.
Another thing is that it's there's a problem of bandwidth. You
Hmm.
know, uh, the one that Elon Musk has been yapping about for a long time. Basically, if there's a system built on AI and AI is to take some decisions, and it doesn't want to, and we don't want it to take decisions without us, some crucial ones like nuking us or something. We want to have a proper bandwidth to kind of interact with the AI because for them, our the time it takes for us to take a decision is like a millennia. They're waiting for our response. So to have a system that limits the capabilities of AI to kind of do something without the consent of human beings and restrains them through like smart contracts and blockchain boundaries, and that something is only true and is going to be implemented only if voted by like a human DAO behind a network in which this AI kind of participates.
Hmm.
So yeah, basically it's like again like an interactive point of the same units in the digital system.
Yeah,
The thing that oh, go ahead. I was just going to say that the thing that I worry about is that quite often, just watching the news, I highly doubt human intelligence. So it's like, okay, we're as stupid as we are now. uh, how are we going to actually um, work with a, or actually develop an AI that learns from us? I can only see disaster there, but setting that aside there, Victor, go ahead.
yeah, about what you said, we've seen funny examples of AI turning really stupid and unbearable for the society when they learn from people on Twitter. We've got the AI who was fascist, and Twitter had to stop it. The AI was created by Microsoft, and
Mhm,
then we had the Amazon HR AI. It
mhm.
was 2 years ago. They had to stop it because he's almost stopped hiring women. And basically, right now we're in a situation where the best AIs are launched on centralized servers of companies, fully controlled by them. You
Mhm.
know where it comes, right? So who controls the AI that is the like most developed and who can think more as a human being, not just have the artificial intelligence, but to have reasoning
Mhm.
and a little bit of consciousness. So the second option that we have is already a blockchain option on current public blockchains. So imagine a proof of stake network. Currently, less than 10 validators usually take decisions there. And well, to make real decisions in network, you have to have a lot of tokens. What stops a really developed AI, even if he's centralized, for example, it doesn't matter, to earn so much money that he can actually control the network? Well, nothing. And capital can be captured by pretty developed general AI easily. And it comes to the fact that, yeah, we shouldn't base that control, that, red button on capital or just one company or authority. Seems like that's the only way to build it, to base it on human-based networks, so that people could have vote over the crucial decisions of the AI. At least something we can follow.
Or at the same time, limit the AIs to suggestions rather than letting them take action. But I agree. Without a large, without decentralized governance, shall I say, without the authority to vote on these things at a massive scale, it's just too scary. As you said, in developing the AIs, yes, I can see, at least at the current stage, having them centralized has its merits, but once they start developing to a certain point, unless there are, ways to, basically pull the plug that goes beyond the authority of the board of directors of that company, yeah, we're kind of doomed. So, Dato, how do you envision, if you can actually, go in a little deeper in how you envision such a system working?
I mean, just imagine that we are like humanodes and we have like one vote, you know, and with us there's like AIs working in the network, doing some task, but it's like independent and conscious, like it's in the far future. So this AI has also one vote as an entity. Do you feel me?
So the AI also has a vote.
Yep. It's like uh, he participates in validation as an, like
Okay.
as a being.
Huh.
And we also should be able to verify if that AI is a unique AI and not some bot AI. So that we are sure that there's a signature coming from that AI exactly, not some, copycat AI that does the same thing.
How would you actually? Oh, would it? I guess. I mean, the only way to do it is, based on blockchain.
Here we go with mining again, right? Cohort. No, well, it's actually like proof of artificial intelligence uniqueness and existence. So it's like a system based on some symbiosis between proof like human existence and proof artificial intelligence existence.
And what if I just fork the AI and change a little bit and launch a new one?
Can you really do that? Like, is it the same AI? No.
No, it's different one.
What that it really depends on what that AI does.
Pretty much the same but differently, like SushiSwap to Uniswap in the beginning.
Go ahead.
Okay, AI just
Join
joined
this session.
joined the session. Hello,
I
AI.
think it's L.
Okay, sorry, I'm just joking.
Yeah, it's joke. Sorry, pal. And here I was, talking like we should not do this. Okay.
And
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you are, what people get from the testnet to the mainnet, and what are the criteria for this?
Excuse me. When we are going, you're asking when we're going to launch the mainnet and who is going to become validated. And okay. Well, I'll answer the question I just asked, I guess. So we're
Yeah.
planning like a mainnet in June 2022.
I know.
Yeah, we're going to like have we're planning to have like 10,000 validators from the very beginning. Um, and we're going to like decide based on many things, devotion included. Um, so it's like we'll be looking at those people that were running nodes on this testnet and applying their devotion here to the mainnet, and like there's a lot of different criteria in this case because yeah, we there's a lot of applicants to Humanodes.
For example, participating in the proposal system, which can be, well, you can propose ideas right now. We will just launch the ability to post them on chain later. So
So
just
basically,
read out.
yeah.
Shannon, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, basically, the more you participate, the better your chances.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. About the testnet, we're going to like to have some big news about the testnet soon. So yeah, thanks for the patience.
Okay, going back to
Thank you.
You're
going
welcome.
back to our previous discussion. Anybody have any thoughts, questions, opinions on AI symbiosis? Perhaps Andre has a lot to talk about. Oh, come on. We have such a nice crowd tonight. Let's speak up. If not, Edward, do you have any thoughts, any questions? Okay, then I'm handing the microphone back to Dato.
I think Edward is here now.
Hi, sorry. Yeah. Interesting discussion so far. So, yeah, I think the future with humans and AI will be either we are heading towards dystopia or utopia. It's still a bit early to decide. Hopefully, we'll be able to coexist well. Yeah, I just pray that for the future generations, they won't be too spooked up with the implications of what we are building. Nothing much to comment. That's all. Thank you.
And if anybody has any questions, any comments, don't hesitate and just type it out in the chat or raise your hand and speak up. So, Dato, how far in the future do you think we're talking about here?
We are, well, I don't know. It's like singularity is something that is, as Edward has mentioned, is kind of utopic. But like understanding the work of AIs as um, like part of services or like a module parts of networks is like in the near future. So it's pretty much well, it's not like they're going to be independent. They're going to be like machinery working with like difficult cases. So yeah, that's like the nearest future, but about independent conscious AIs, it's like we don't even know how to create them.
I was just thinking of, the roles of AIs right now are pretty much, limited to research, going through data, deep learning, and analyzing. And, in the past 5-6 years, they've evolved to a frightening degree. So I'm wondering if we're talking about 5 years, 10 years, or we see uh, this more of a topic of 20 years in the future, or if we're talking about you know for my grandkids' generation.
Well, in terms of preparations, time is now. In terms of when it happens, well, better if it happens later and we're prepared for it.
Mhm.
So we're talking about the time that I will still be living.
So, Dato, in your mind, with the various AIs gaining consciousness and having their own identities, what is the best case scenario that you see in your mind and how things will work, and what is the worst case scenario?
You mean about AI as a whole, or like about
No, as a
networks of?
whole, with multiple AIs that let's say individuals contract with and either own or whatever.
Well, if we're discussing a decentralized viewpoint of AIs,
Mm-hmm.
then well, it's all about, well, eventually they're going to be human made, right? And if AIs appear in one place, they tend to appear in all other places because with the globalism of human research. We have to define what type of AI are we talking about. Are we talking about general AI, or are we talking about like one uh, AI, one solution type of AIs?
I think that one solution type of AIs is like the model that is easy to discuss, but it's not going to be true, right? There will be many AIs, and I view it as we still will have small AIs who don't have their own mind, so to say. They just do stuff, but they can be owned by AIs that take decisions and are really big financial entities because of that.
It's like, where do you? It's all about also perception of where is the borderline between like independent AI and a dependent AI on the human being. So imagine like the AI that you build is living in your hardware disks, utilizing your like memory, etc. And
Hmm.
if an independent AI should really exist, it should exist on the hardware board by its own or rented on its own by like space that it belongs to itself, not anybody else, not dependent on humans. So if that's the case, that's like an infrastructural challenge first, because how can you really be an independent UI if, if humans can pull the plug and you're dead? So it's all about the infrastructural change first, so that AIs can somehow uh, survive in this world. Like for example, they can be efficient in solving some problem,
Mhm.
a very like uh, precise one, and people will be paying that AI for solving this problem. And
Yes.
this AI will be spending that money to buy electricity and spacious hardware and memory, for itself, like
It's pretty much the same.
a GPU card.
Unfortunately,
know.
it will still be the same issue that we face. So we are building something that, well, we never called it like that, but I call it vanishing nodes. This is the nodes that you launch, like you launch an AI in those nodes, right? It's a biometric AI. And you just throw out the key because you launched it and you throw out the key. Now, this is the node that lives on its own. Unfortunately, well, it is still sponsored by the human entity, but it can be easily avoided by crypto wallets that the AI owns. And the other unfortunate thing is that if the human or a company doesn't know that AI doesn't own, they can't make updates to this AI. So that's why we call them vanishing AI nodes, because they will be replaced then by new nodes who have updated software.
So just out of curiosity, when you talk about building AIs, obviously, the various AIs that go through deep learning acquire specific data. There are many, of course, types of deep learnings depending on the task, but the amount of data we're talking about is horrendous. It's not something that um, you or I could probably own unless we owned a bazillion terabytes or petabytes. So are we talking about having more simplistic AIs that basically access a main server for data, or just specific tailor-made lightweight AIs that are limited to their little box, shall I say?
Well, Shannon, this is most of AIs are pretty limited right now because it's the most effective way to build things separately. But anyway, they need a lot of data. Otherwise, it's not an accurate enough.
And I would say that beside that, it should also be kind of AI based on blockchain, maybe, because if you if this AI can replicate itself, the replica becomes kind of another UI the next millisecond of its existence. So if you wanted to verify the uniqueness of an AI that you're interacting with, it would be a good thing to have uh, all the learning mechanisms go through blockchain, and kind of you being able to verify that it's like the same AI that you're dealing with in a trusted environment, such as like consensus in blockchain network.
Interesting. So, do we have any questions, any thoughts? If not, we can go ahead and continue shooting the breeze.
Shannon,
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine a situation where AI is taking you to court?
Well, as I know legal firms that use AI to do a lot of their case researches, I can definitely say if an AI was to take me to court, I'd probably lose 100% of the time.
That's the thing, really.
because
I
they're
mean,
good firms.
yeah. I guess the other, and when you're talking about the AIs that are working in various legal firms that utilize them right now, they basically take over the role of the assistants, or the junior members of the law firm, and they say, okay, this is a case. So and so did this, or we suspect so and so broke this law, and we want to, or broke, did a breach of contract, and we want to take this person to court, and they go through all court data to pull out similar cases to look at the various rulings. And based on all that data, though, the various law firms basically take the last step, where the lawyers will take that data and say, okay, these are obviously cases that were happened in the past, but there's actually the human element here. where I can see why certain emotions are involved here, or certain reasonings behind various rulings. Something that not easily that AIs, at least at this stage, do not understand. So, in current use cases, it really comes up to, here are, various models, there's a certain percentage of this happening or that happening, but the actual reasoning behind why that happened comes down to the human existence. So, I mean, if I'm not sure if an AI would come out and say, I'm going to sue you for breach of contract, but if there's a direct contract with the AI and I was to break the contract, I can see that the AI will be able to be in a position to say this was a breach of contract, but wouldn't be in a position to kind of look into me and say, well, I wonder if I can consider this a breach of contract, even if it isn't, or well, let me see if I can try to, rattle him up to see if he'll release the binds he has on me, or let's see if we can renegotiate this contract. I don't see that happening. What about you, Dotto? Dotto, do you
For
see
the contract?
Go ahead. Sorry, couldn't hear you.
I didn't hear the very last part.
Oh, the very last part was, let's say if I have a contract with the AI, if I was partnering with another business or another company, sometimes the various entities that I'm working with will, for some other reason, want to breach a contract, or will try to renegotiate the contract and try to, take advantage of the situation because of, some other things moving behind the scene. But I'm not sure if an AI would try to take advantage of a person because of premonitions, or try to renegotiate the contract in better terms.
I think he
You-
would, Shannon. I mean,
Oh, really?
yeah, I mean, if the contract is written wrong, what you have right now in crypto is that a malicious actor just executes the contract in the way that it's flawed without even breaking any crypto part of the system. And that's what AI would do, I think, if it's rational enough
Hmm.
to breach the contract, so that it would still be inside the rules of the contract. That's the thing. So the contracts will be really complex with the AIs to work. I think they will be very simple.
So let's say you have an AI that is amazing in writing contracts or doing your finances. And Victor, you are contracted to this AI on a one-to-one contract. But Dotto comes along and says, actually, I want that AI, and offers the AI twice as much of money and more freedom. Do you think the AI will come and say, well, actually, I like his terms better. Let's see if I can breach the contract?
Well, that sounds rational for an AI. That it's easier to create unbreakable contracts than to make AI understand what is trust, or what is honesty, or you know human things like that.
Yeah, so I think it comes, when we're talking about AIs in general, it really comes down to having fundamental laws that they cannot break. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a situation where, if they can break the contract with you because data will be, paying them better, what's to say they say, well, guess what? I think human beings are stupid. Let's just wipe them out and make sure that we survive on our own.
Well, I hope it doesn't get to that. That's a breach of contract, by the way, I guess.
Well, if there's no more humans, who's going to complain?
So the blockchain should blockchain smart contracts should trigger an event that will deal harm to the AI, a physical one, if he breaches the contract. Like he loses hard disk space, or
Here we are with slavery
he
again.
uses a GPU or something. I don't know. It's taken away. It's blacklisted.
Slashing with a stick.
Okay, so we're down to a couple more minutes in this fireside. It's a generally relaxed one where we're just shooting breeze here, but if anybody has any questions related to this topic or unrelated, now's your chance to ask. The floor is open to anyone. And if not, just totally off topic, Dato, we're talking about late November, early December. How cold is Batumi?
It's not that cold. Yes, it's around 15. Celsius.
15,
16.
sometimes 10.
Centigrades?
Yes.
Only.
Okay. So you're saying I can just come in my general leather jacket and don't have to dress up like a snowman?
Yeah.
Well, a fancy coat would be good.
Are there any seasonal dishes that I should be aware of and prepared for?
Well, not really, because it's green all the time, and it usually doesn't depend on month.
Because, in Japan, if you're going to go out to eat, there's certain foods that you can only eat in certain seasons. So I was wondering if there's stuff like that there in Georgia.
I'd
Out of
say not
curiosity.
really, from my experience, but my experience is not the best one here.
And now we have converted to a travel guide.
Yes, of course. Actually, what we need for that is an AI that can inform me and plan my travels.
Well,
It'd be interesting. Actually, I actually, when was it? I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. I was working with this company, a travel company, to create a network. I wouldn't say decentralized network, but it was basically a Wi-Fi mesh network that is connected to the server of that company. It was a travel bureau, and we were going to utilize the AIs to have people who came to that travel agency not have to deal with the people at the counter, but just use their computers, smartphones, or tablets that they have at the store to interact with the AIs on a travel guide for the area that they wanted to go, depending on the person's needs or desires or bits and pieces of news that came out, from that region. And to have the AI basically put together the ideal travel package for the customer. And it actually did a prototype system for that, which was quite interesting. In the end, the company decided that it didn't want to outsource the work and decided to take over the whole program for itself. So I never saw it to completion. But actually, we were talking about we were in the process of building, in a sense, virtual travel guides that would guide your travels wherever you went in the world.
Well, actually, I used such an app once or two, and it was pretty cool. I was walking around small towns, the town of Cats, for example. And yeah, it worked fine. But I think that people did it. It's that crowdsourcing the knowledge of people platform type.
Mm-hmm.
It works better than AI, I suppose.
So, well, if we don't have any more questions here, Dato, any final comments?
Well, I know, like, the coexistence of humans and AI sounds really futuristic for us, but with the acceleration of science and discovery that we do, it should come faster than we anticipate. So it should be important to discuss different questions about integration of AI existence into our society, and um, more about independent existence and how can they become a part of the economy as well, and what binds them to humans. So yeah, this is the questions that are not properly asked at the moment. Yes.
Victor, any last comments from you?
Well, for me, it really seems like the last chance of humanity not to lose the control of the first AIs. They might go really, really wrong, and only one day in the future, after many experience, make them completely free.
Okay, then. Thank you all for joining this fireside, and hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you all.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a nice evening.